Hey everyone, welcome back. We've had so many questions about finding a spouse, not just, a good spouse, but one who really shares your faith. And we hear you. We get it.
Yeah.
That's why we're diving into Marry a Man Who Loves God and Adores You, Online or Offline, by Gail Marie King.
Oh, I love that book.
It's so good, right? I just love how it blends like practical dating advice with these biblical principles.
Yeah. It's like having a faith-based dating coach
Yes.
in your pocket. Like it's right there.
Totally. Okay, so
Yeah.
something that really stood out to me was how clearly King states that God is like the ultimate matchmaker.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
She even uses scriptures like Ephesians 2:10 and Jeremiah 29:11 to back that up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about those verses like in relation to finding a spouse?
Well, Ephesians 2:10, it talks about how we're God's handiwork,
Right.
created for good works. And, in the context of marriage, it makes me think about how finding a partner isn't just about romance,
Mhm.
It's about how you can both serve God and each other. Oh, that's good.
Through your gifts.
I love that perspective.
Yeah.
It's not just finding someone to complete you, but finding someone to partner with you
Yes.
on this bigger purpose.
Absolutely.
I love that.
And then you have Jeremiah 29:11, which talks about, God having plans for us in the future full of hope.
Mm-hmm.
And I think applying that to dating really shifts your focus from that frantic searching to trusting,
Yes.
that God has someone in mind for you.
Like releasing the pressure
Yeah.
and just trusting God.
Yes. And just becoming the best version of yourself.
Totally.
You know.
I love that. Okay, so speaking of trusting God's plan,
Yes.
the book even talks about online dating through that lens,
Yes.
which I thought was so fascinating.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
She even shares an anecdote about asking this group of women
Right.
if they had tried online dating
Mm-hmm.
and none of them ended up marrying someone they met online.
Yeah. And it makes you wonder.
Right.
We put too much emphasis on how we meet someone,
Yes. Yes.
instead of our relationship with God
Right.
and preparing ourselves.
And preparing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the book also explores 7 biblical couples,
Yeah.
but not just as like,
Right.
cute love stories.
Yeah. Not just like, oh, look at them.
Exactly.
They were in love.
So what are some of the takeaways from their stories that are relevant for us today?
Well, she really highlights how, the women weren't out there husband hunting,
Right.
but God orchestrated those encounters.
Yes.
And, there was definitely attraction
Oh, yeah.
and chemistry.
Yes.
You know.
We're into each other.
Yeah. And the men were excited to marry these women.
Yes.
Like they were like, yes, I want to marry her.
Totally. And wise elders often played a role as well,
Yeah, that's a good point.
like guiding those individuals toward marriage.
Right.
It makes you think about how important it is to have
Yeah.
mentors and community.
Yeah, a supportive community,
Yeah.
to give you advice.
All right, to bounce things off of.
Okay, so the book also talks about how we need to be prepared
Oh, yeah.
for a godly relationship.
Yes.
And there's this whole section called Prepare to be Married
Mm-hmm.
with a checklist.
Yes.
It really makes you stop and think.
Yeah.
So what are some of those questions that we need to ask ourselves?
Well, it's like, is God really first in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And what are your values? Especially when it comes to dating.
Yeah.
Are you taking care of yourself
Fine.
physically, emotionally, financially?
Right. And those are all things that not only make you a good partner, but also help you figure out if
Yeah.
someone else is on that same path.
Exactly. Yeah. Because, aligning your life with God's principles will just naturally draw you to people who share those values.
Absolutely. And that kind of leads into this next question about online dating,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like the big elephant in the room these days
Yes.
in Christian circles.
Yes. It's a hot topic.
So what's King's take on it?
Well, she doesn't condemn it outright.
Which I found refreshing.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
Right.
And you have to approach it with prayer,
Mm-hmm.
wisdom,
Yes.
and caution.
Definitely. So she does cite some research from Pew Research Center
Yeah.
and the National Association of Evangelicals that shows that online dating may not be as successful as we think.
Right. And, it circles back to that whole idea of trusting in God's plan.
Yeah.
The platform isn't the point.
Yeah.
It's about seeking God
Yes.
and aligning your desires with his will.
So it's like the online dating site is the car,
Yeah.
but God's the one driving.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. Okay, so she does give some practical tips, though,
She does.
about online dating.
She does.
Like prioritizing safety,
Yes.
never compromise your values.
Right.
She says only date men who identify as Christians.
Right.
Take your time
Yeah.
to really get to know someone virtually before you meet them.
Yeah.
Be careful about long-distance relationships, all good stuff.
Yeah.
And then she has this whole section called Know When to Call It Quits, which is a pretty bold title.
Yes, it is.
And it's all about red flags,
Yeah.
recognizing when something's not right.
Mm-hmm.
And she says you have to listen to your intuition,
Yes.
seek advice from trusted sources,
Yeah.
all very important.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like the big takeaway from this first part
Yes.
is that finding a godly spouse is like this
Yeah.
multifaceted journey.
It is.
And it requires a lot of introspection and work.
Work preparation.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
So before we go on to the next part of this deep dive,
Okay.
I want to leave you with a question to think about.
Okay. I'm ready.
Have you been approaching dating from a place of desperation or a place of trust in God's plan?
That is a good question.
We'll be back in a bit with part 2 of this deep dive.
So, diving back into this,
Yes.
one thing that really struck me was how King cackles those like roadblocks to marriage.
Yeah, the 7 roadblocks to marriage.
Yeah, section was really
Eye-opening.
Yes. What did you find particularly insightful about that?
Well, she starts by talking about, having a real relationship with God, not just using faith as like a dating strategy.
Right. It's not just like checking the box, Christian.
Right, exactly.
Your dating profile.
It's about that deep connection that guides your decisions.
Totally.
And she also talks about, not rushing into marriage just because you're lonely
Oh, yeah.
or because of societal pressures.
That's so tempting, though.
I know.
Especially when you see everyone else around you getting married.
I know, but she really encourages you to be honest about your motives.
Right.
And take the time to get to know someone on a deeper level.
Deeper level, yeah.
And speaking of deeper levels, she also warns against compromising your values or becoming overly needy.
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah, it's easy to fall into that trap
It is.
of trying to please someone or overlooking those red flags when you just really want that connection.
Yes.
Yeah.
But she's very clear that self-respect and maintaining your boundaries are actually super attractive qualities.
Yes, so true, because it shows that you value yourself.
Yes.
And the right person will appreciate that.
Absolutely. And then you have the issue of unresolved baggage from past relationships.
Oh, yeah. Can be tough.
It can be really tough. And, carrying that hurt and anger into a new relationship can be so toxic.
It's like trying to build a house on a shaky foundation.
Exactly.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to last. And, she really emphasizes the importance of forgiveness here.
Yes.
Not just for the other person, but for yourself.
Right.
Letting go of the past so you can move forward.
Easier said than done, I think, for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But she reminds us that holding on to that anger is only hurting us. It keeps us trapped.
Right. Yeah.
And it prevents us from experiencing God's love.
And I love how she connects that with the seeking counsel from others.
Yes.
Because it's so easy to get stuck in our own heads.
It is. And, especially when we're emotionally invested.
Especially in this situation.
Yeah. Having that supportive community, mentors, friends, maybe even a therapist can offer that objective perspective.
Yes. It's like that spiritual safety net.
Yeah.
To help you kind of wade through all of the muck.
Exactly. And speaking of things that can complicate relationships.
Okay.
The book dives into the topic of casual sex.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is.
Especially in today's culture.
Yes, where it's kind of presented as the norm.
Right.
So what does King say about that?
Well, she's very clear about her stance.
Okay.
She aligns with the biblical principle of reserving physical intimacy for marriage.
Okay.
And she makes a really compelling argument that constantly jumping from one sexual relationship to the next can actually hinder your ability to find a committed partner.
Right. Because it can kind of cloud your judgment.
Exactly.
About
it's genuine.
What's real. It's like your emotional compass gets all messed up.
Yeah, exactly. And it can also lead to a lot of baggage that makes it hard to really open up to someone new.
Like every relationship leaves a little residue.
Yes.
And then it all builds up.
Yes. And it creates those barriers to intimacy.
I like that. Okay. So she also points out that the Bible offers a different model.
It does.
For single women, especially widows.
Right. Like Tamar, who was expected to remain chaste after her husband died.
Right.
Until a suitable marriage could be arranged.
And that shows that like waiting for marriage wasn't always this like outdated concept.
Exactly. It was actually the cultural norm for centuries.
Wow. It's amazing how much things have changed.
It really is.
in our culture.
Yeah, and she challenges us to consider, have those shifts actually been beneficial?
Yeah.
When it comes to finding lasting love.
Right. Are we really better off?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things I found super helpful in this section was her list of 6 signs of readiness for marriage. Like, how do you know?
Yeah.
When you're ready.
When you're ready.
So do you remember all 6?
I think I do want to try and see if we can remember them all.
Okay, let's see if we can do it.
Okay.
So the first one is having that solid personal relationship with Jesus.
Yes.
Being able to hear God's voice.
Yes. Number 2 is being at peace with your past.
Yes.
Any unresolved issues with exes or family members.
Yeah, it's about entering a new relationship.
Yes.
With a clean slate.
Clean slate, yes. And number 3 is about emotional maturity.
Okay.
Being able to forgive quickly.
Yeah.
Not holding on to grudges.
Because every relationship is going to have conflict.
It is.
If you're holding on to all this resentment,
yeah,
it's not going to go well.
It's going to poison everything. Exactly.
Mm.
Okay, number 4 is a practical one.
Okay.
Being financially independent.
Yes.
Capable of supporting yourself.
Yes. Because you're not looking for someone to rescue you.
Exactly.
Financially.
It's about 2 equals coming together.
Yes. I love that.
Yes. Okay, number 5 is being able to handle stress in a healthy way.
Ooh, good one.
Yes.
Because life happens.
Life happens.
You can't just have a meltdown every time something goes wrong.
Exactly. And last but not least, number 6.
Okay.
Taking care of your physical health.
Yes.
Exercise, eating healthy, getting enough sleep.
Because it all affects everything else.
It does. It really does.
Your emotional health.
Your energy levels.
Your energy levels.
Your ability to connect with others.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected.
Wow, we did it. We got all 6.
We did it.
Okay, so it's amazing how those 6 areas really cover like all aspects of a healthy life.
They do.
Spiritual, emotional, relational, financial, physical.
What a holistic approach
Yes.
to getting ready for marriage.
Yes, becoming the best version of yourself.
Absolutely. And if you're struggling in any of these areas, she encourages you to start by focusing on your relationship with God.
It always comes back to that,
It does.
doesn't it?
It really does, because Christ is our ultimate healer and provider.
Right.
And, as we draw closer to him,
Mm-hmm.
he'll equip us
Yeah.
to overcome those challenges.
Right, and it's like putting on that spiritual armor
Yes.
before you even step onto the dating battlefield.
I love that.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so if you're feeling discouraged or exhausted
Mm-hmm.
by the dating scene,
Yeah.
King has a really simple but powerful message.
What is that?
It's time to put God in the driver's seat.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, focus on deepening your connection with him,
Absolutely.
studying his word,
Yes.
exercising your faith.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, it's that relationship with God
Hmm.
that will prepare you for the kind of love and marriage that he has for you.
Yes. And another big question she tackles is, how do you know
Yeah.
if God is confirming a particular person?
Right. How do you know if it's God or if it's just your emotions?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, she uses the story of Abraham's servant seeking a wife for Isaac.
Right.
Remember how the servant prayed for God's guidance?
Yes.
Before he even approached Rebecca.
Yeah. And God orchestrated those events
He did.
to confirm that she was the right one.
Yeah. And what's interesting is that the servant wasn't just passively waiting.
Right.
He was actively seeking God's will.
Yes, through prayer.
Through prayer.
And then trust.
And trusting God to lead him.
Exactly. And she encourages us to do the same.
Yeah.
Bring your desires to God in prayer. Be specific about the qualities you're looking for.
Yes.
And trust him to orchestrate the details.
Totally. And she even gives us these tough questions.
It does.
To ask ourselves, like, have I truly asked God for guidance?
Right.
Am I confident in his response?
Yeah.
Why do I want to be married?
Mm-hmm.
Do I understand God's purpose for marriage?
Yeah.
What will my marriage contribute to God's kingdom?
Wow, those are some deep questions.
They are.
And it's not just about finding someone to make you happy.
Right.
It's about aligning your desires with God's plan.
Yes. His greater plan.
His greater plan, yes. And that brings us to this idea of kingdom purpose,
Yes.
which she emphasizes throughout the book.
Yes, that marriage isn't just about romantic love, but partnering with someone.
To advance God's work.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's seeing your relationship
Yes.
as part of something bigger than just the two of you.
Absolutely.
It's impacting the world around you together.
It's like becoming a power couple.
Yes.
For the kingdom.
I love that.
Yes.
Okay, so once you've prayed and sought God's direction,
Yeah.
What are some practical steps?
Well, she encourages you to put yourself out there.
Okay.
Attend church events, join Christian groups, maybe even try online dating if you feel led.
Okay.
But proceed with caution and wisdom.
Right. Really get to know someone.
Yes. Take your time.
Yeah.
At least 12 to 24 months.
Wow.
To observe their character.
That's good reality check.
Because it's so easy to get caught up.
It is.
In the excitement.
In the newness of it all.
Yes.
Yeah. And involve trusted advisors.
Right. Like pastors.
Pastors, mentors, close friends.
Yes. Those people who can give you that objective perspective.
Absolutely.
And kind of be that safety net for you.
Yes. And speaking of navigating that dating world safely, she gives some really practical tips for online dating.
Yeah, that whole section on online dating is a must read.
It is.
Especially, for safety.
Yes. Be discerning.
Protect yourself.
From potential scams, harmful situations. Only date men who identify as Christians. Take your time. Verified information. Have video chats before meeting in person.
Right.
Be cautious about long-distance relationships.
Yes.
Prioritize safety above all else.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so she also gives tips for screening potential dates.
Yes.
Whether online or offline.
Yes.
So what are some of those questions that we should be asking?
Well, ask about their relationship with God. Their family dynamics, their involvement in church.
Right.
Get a sense of their values and lifestyle.
Yeah, and don't ignore red flags.
No.
Just because you're excited about someone.
Don't settle.
Yeah.
It's better to walk away than to force something.
Yes, and that can be hard.
It can.
Especially when you feel like...
When you're lonely.
Lonely.
Yeah.
Or like time is running out.
Right. And, speaking of that, she is a huge advocate for long-term celibacy.
Okay.
And she presents it not as this burden, but as a way to honor God and ensure that your relationship is built on a solid foundation.
Yeah, it can be a good test, too, of a man's character.
Absolutely.
And commitment level.
If he's willing to wait, it shows respect.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's also very upfront about online dating not being a guaranteed path to marriage.
Oh, for sure. She even cites statistics from the Pew Research Center and the National Association of Evangelicals.
Yeah.
Showing that online dating has a pretty low success rate.
Wow. So it's not a magic bullet.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's a tool, but ultimately, it's God who brings the right people into our lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not about putting your hope in an algorithm.
Exactly.
It's about trusting that God's working behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And she emphasizes that miracles often happen through obedience.
Yeah. So aligning your actions with God's will.
Yeah.
And trusting that he's going to honor that.
Absolutely. And she gives this beautiful reminder that God has never left his daughters alone to fend for themselves or hunt for a man.
It's encouraging to remember that you're not in this alone.
You're not alone.
Yeah.
He's with you every step of the way.
Okay, so there's this really powerful section in the book called Know When to Call It Quits.
Yes.
What did you think about that section?
Oh, it's so important. Yes.
Being able to recognize those red flags.
Yes.
And having the courage to walk away from a relationship that's not healthy.
That's not God's best for you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she outlined some pretty clear red flags.
Yeah, like what are some of those?
If a man isn't saved, can't support himself financially, is abusive, needs constant consoling, or if God is clearly telling you to let go.
Yes.
Those are all big signs to pay attention to.
Yeah, what else?
She also mentions things like an inability to forgive.
Okay.
Lack of counsel from trusted advisors, or, constantly feeling like you're trying to change or fix the other person.
Right.
And trust your gut feelings.
Yeah, that inner voice.
That inner voice.
It's telling you something's not right.
Yeah. She even addresses specific situations like if a man is still entangled with an ex.
Oh, yeah.
Has a strained relationship with his family, is constantly unreliable, pressures you for sex.
Right.
It's like she's giving you permission to walk away.
Yeah. Yes.
From those situations that are not aligned with God's best.
Yes, because settling for less than God's best will just lead to heartache.
It will guard your heart. Trust that God has something better in store for you.
I love that. Okay, so what's refreshing about this book is that it doesn't end on a negative note.
It doesn't.
It ends with a beautiful prayer for a godly mate.
It does.
And a collection of inspirational scriptures.
Yes, the promises of God for singles section is so good.
It's like a balm for the soul.
It is.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so it leaves you feeling so hopeful and encouraged, knowing that God is faithful.
He is.
And he desires to bless us with a love.
Yeah.
That's true and lasting.
Yeah.
As we move into the final part of our deep dive, I keep thinking about how King emphasizes that wholehearted love for God as the foundation for everything.
Absolutely. And, when you truly love God,
you won't be fooled by hypocrites or settle.
Right, you'll have those standards.
You will. And, a man who truly loves God will be just as concerned about your relationship with God as he is with any other attribute.
That's good. And she even says that you won't have to convince a godly man to marry you.
Right.
God will tell him if you're the one.
Oh, I love that.
It takes the pressure off.
It does.
Doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I think that's a perfect place to transition.
It is.
Into the last part of this deep dive.
Yes, I'm excited to explore those inspirational scriptures.
Me too.
And see how they tie into this whole conversation.
Yes. So we've covered a lot of ground, talking about being ready for a godly relationship and all the practical stuff.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that really stood out to me was that emphasis on hope and those promises from God.
Oh, absolutely. The promises of God for singles section was so powerful.
Yes. It's like she's saying, I know this journey can be tough, but don't give up.
Yeah, don't lose heart. God sees you. He hears you.
He's got you. And she uses specific scriptures.
Yeah.
Like Isaiah 41:10, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. Yes, I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand.
Such a good reminder that we're not alone.
Yes.
You know?
God is right there with us.
He is.
Every step of the way.
And then you have Psalm 37.4, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart.
Oh, that one always gets me.
Me too, because it reminds us that God's not trying to withhold good things from us.
Right. He wants to bless us.
He does.
Yeah.
And especially, when our desires line up with his will.
Yes, and sometimes his timing is different than ours.
It is.
And King acknowledges that. She points to Lamentations 3.25. The Lord is good to those who wait for him, to the soul who seeks him.
It's a call to be patient.
Yes, to trust, to surrender our timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even when it's hard, even when we're feeling discouraged or impatient, we can hold on to those verses like Isaiah 55:8-9.
Oh, yeah.
For my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are your ways my ways, says the Lord. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts.
It's humbling, isn't it?
It is.
To remember that God's perspective is so much bigger than ours.
Yes, and his plans are better.
They are.
Than anything we can imagine.
Yeah.
And sometimes those plans involve waiting.
Yes, they do.
And preparation, like in Isaiah 30.18. So the Lord must wait for you to come to him so he can show you his love and compassion. For the Lord is a faithful God. Blessed are those who wait for his help.
Beautiful.
It's like he's saying, come to me. Let me prepare your heart.
Yes, spend time with me.
Yeah.
Let me love you.
Yes.
Yeah, there's one verse I think that perfectly captures that desire for a godly spouse. Proverbs 19.14, fathers can give their sons an inheritance of houses and wealth, but only the Lord can give an understanding wife.
It's so true. It's a reminder that God is the one who brings two people together.
Yes.
In marriage, and that we should be praying for that kind of spouse.
Yes, someone who understands you.
Yes, who cherishes you, who shares your faith.
Absolutely.
And as we reflect on all this wisdom and encouragement, it's important to remember that finding a godly spouse isn't the ultimate goal.
It's not. It's easy to get so focused on that.
Yes.
That we lose sight of what's really important.
Right. Our primary calling is to love God.
Yes.
And serve him.
Absolutely.
And marriage is just one expression of that.
It is.
If it's part of his plan for us.
It's about partnering with someone to advance his kingdom.
Yes. Using your gifts together.
Yes.
And if marriage isn't part of God's plan, you can still live a life of purpose.
You can.
And service.
Through your career, your relationships, serving others.
Creative pursuits.
Yeah, the possibilities are endless.
Yes.
Yeah, and our worth isn't tied to our relationship status.
That's so important to remember.
It is. We're already complete in Christ.
Yes. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
yes,
let's keep that truth at the center of our hearts.
Let's pursue God.
Yes.
Seek his will.
Trust his plan.
Yeah.
Because it's more magnificent than anything we could imagine.
Absolutely.
So whether that plan includes marriage or not, let's live our lives with purpose.
Yes.
Serve others' love with abandon.
Beautiful.
This deep dive has been so encouraging. I hope it's given you a lot to think about.
Me too.
And to pray about.
Yes, and remember, dear listener, you are loved. You are valued.
And you are not alone on this journey.
You are not.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep trusting.
And keep believing
that God has something extraordinary in store for you.